Now I will start with the meeting. Where last for 2 days we were dealing with Newton's laws of motion, and we have done up to the third. As we know that the Newton's first law states about the need of the force, second law gives the mathematical expression of it, and the third law gives the origin. I will like to share the particular presentation over here with the request that everyone should keep the mic off, as well as they must use their own names on the mobile or laptop. Over here, someone has joined right now with the name as Lenovo K6POW. I get disturbed by this, that why you people are not listening to the simple instructions which are given to you. So your name should be there, because there is no verification whether this person is outsider or whether he is from our group itself. One student has asked, what is physical independence of the force? In what reference this question is? If you unmute the mic and ask, it will be a better choice.
So there was a question, physical independence of force is consequence of, and four option, first law of motion, second law of motion, third law of motion, and all of these law.
It is first law of motion. It has been discussed very neatly in state board book, as well as not that neatly, but it has been discussed in NCERT also. And today we will be discussing it in the presentation also. So don't worry, Utpal, we will be dealing with that. Fine. So we will start with some few presentations so that this video things will be more impacting and you will be able to note down some few things. They are based on the book. And let me tell you that instead of NCERT, the state board book has used the main reference, that is university physics, over here in a better way. Someone has raised the hand. Once I move to the particular full screen, it is not easy for me to see the chat. So may I know what the particular question was? In chat, no question is said. Raising the hand was there. Is by mistake, we will proceed further. Yeah. So this particular chapter is basically about the opposition to Aristotle. According to Aristotle, the heavy object move towards the earth with higher speed, and the light objects will move with the lesser speed. But Galileo said that this is incorrect, and for that he proved this particular by one small experiment. He stood at the top of the Pisa's Leaning Tower, which is at present in Italy, Florence, and he dropped two balls. One was of iron and other was wood. Both the balls came down. What happened? Are you able to see the slide?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So according to Aristotle, heavy bodies will move towards Earth with high speed, and we have discussed about this. So to prove this particular result, this is the Pisa's tower on which Galileo went, and he dropped these two balls and they came down with the same speed. This was the first shock to the Aristotle philosophy, which was in accordance with the Bible, and the people were believing him, and this was the first jerk. The second was, according to Aristotle, an external force is always required to keep the body in uniform motion. That was Aristotle's assumption. And this assumption was also broken down by Galileo. What he said is this, that if the body is released from a frictionless surface in a U shape, it will rise up to the same height. Now, if the surface is not raised, then body will keep on moving forever. Something like this, it might be consideration. Body rises up to this much. But if suppose instead of this pattern, I have this pattern, then obviously body will continue. And for this, in NCERT, another approach is also shown, which was used by Galileo. What he did was something like this. Aristotle's law of motion may be phrased as an external force is required to keep a body in motion, whereas Galileo studied the motion of objects on an inclined plane. What he did was this, that he first tried to release the ball from the top of a wooden table, uppermost figure. Over there he realized that over here the ball gets accelerated. In the second case, when the ball is moved up from the bottom, at that time it retards, means deaccelerates. Now while coming it accelerates, while going up it deaccelerates. What will happen if it is neither going up nor coming down? That was a simple logic which he put, and the answer was obviously motion on a horizontal plane is an intermediate situation. So he concluded that the object moving on a frictionless horizontal plane, word frictionless was not with him, but he said that if it is moving on a horizontal plane, it must neither have acceleration nor retardation. So this is what was the thing, and this gave rise to the concept of inertia. Inertia is the state of rest, and the state of uniform motion, linear motion, are equivalent. Both don't need force. My dear friend, this concept is very difficult to digest. Let me give one small example, which generally I ask at the time of oral interaction with anyone. There are two balls. One is of 1 kg, another is of 10 kg. 1 kg is moving with 2 meters per second, 10 kg is moving with 2 meters per second. On which ball more force is acting? Unknowingly we say 10 kg ball. And the fact is, on neither of the ball force is acting. Because they are moving with 2 meters per second, means with constant speed in one direction, obviously it indicates that no force is acting on it. Try to understand this concept. Now, this property of body is called as inertia. Inertia means resistance to change. the state of motion, obviously. So inertia may be of three types: inertia of rest, inertia of motion, and inertia of direction. You're familiar with these concepts in your 9th standard, but just to have small revision, inertia of rest means body resists. If it is in rest, it will try to be in rest. In motion, that means if it is in motion, it tries to remain in motion, and also it is not willing to change its direction. The best example is if I'm standing in a bus, this is what is given in State Board as well as in NCERT. The moment bus starts, I resist for the motion, I try to be over there, and due to that, I fall behind me. My legs continue with the particular bus, but my body denies to move along with the bus. After some time, when the driver applies the brake, at that time, suddenly I am pushed forward because legs are ready to stop along with the bus because of the force of friction, but the body denies to stop. So I fall in my front, and that is what is the inertia of motion. If the bus turns left or bus turns right, then I turn in the opposite direction. That is what is inertia of direction. Newton's first law, we have discussed about it. These are the statements which are given in NCERT as well as the State Board. SBB means State Board book. NCERT means NCERT book. Every inanimate object, inanimate means non-self driven. Bird we won't be considering. Cat we won't be considering. It should not have its own motion. So every object continues to be in the state of rest or of uniform unaccelerated motion unless and until it is acted upon by external unbalanced force. Whereas the NCERT defines it as if a net external force on a body is zero, its acceleration is zero. Acceleration can be non-zero only if there is a net external force. Now, net external force means it has to be unbalanced. So that is what is said over there. Both are equivalent. Try to see the equivalence over there. If you are not having the copies, it is better to note down. And even if you are having copies, it is better to note down. Noting down is the process of learning. Now, this law gives the need of the force. So this is what physical independence of the force. Now, second law. Second law is meant to measure the amount of the force. The law states that the rate of change of linear momentum of a rigid body is directly proportional to the applied force and takes place in the direction of the applied force. We have dealt with this, that's why I'm going a little fast over here. Mathematically, it means F bar is proportional to d dt of P bar. So obviously F bar will be equal to K times d dt of P bar. P bar means M into V bar. So it will be equal to K times M into dV bar by dt plus V bar into d dt of M. By defining unit of force, the value of K was made to be 1. As unit force act when the momentum changes by 1 in unit time. So obviously dP was 1, dt was 1, F was 1, so K was forcefully 1. That is the way how we make the particular constant manageable. Now a feeling was this, that whether this second law will have the implication of first law. Will it imply first law? As no force means no acceleration. That is what is indication. because if you look at the particular case, it has been said that it is P bar. Now, change in P bar means the accelerated motion. So if the force is 0, that means acceleration is 0. Will it indicate the same thing? So the answer is, it is not. The reason is, may I hope that you are able to see the whiteboard now? F bar has been equated with K into dP bar by dt. Are you able to see my writing?
Yes, sir.
Now, if this particular F bar is 0, that clearly will indicate K is obviously not supposed to be 0 anytime. It was designed to be 1. So it turns out as dP by dt. If I substitute the value of P, then it turns out as mv bar. So if m is constant, then it will be dv bar by dt. As m cannot be 0, so obviously this particular must be 0. So once I say force is 0, it indicates acceleration is 0. This is what was first law. So it tells me that by using second law, I get the first law. So second law indicates first law. Is this correct? The answer is no, because the very first statement is assuming the first law. F bar means when you write F bar on the left hand side means you have accepted the existence of force. Existence of force is in the law of inertia, and that's why you cannot conclude first law by using second law, because the very first statement of second law is based on the first law. So this is what is telling us physical independence of the force. Another thing over here is you cannot conclude the first law by using the second law, because we are having F bar is equal to d dt of mv bar. Now this turns out to be m into dv bar by dt plus v bar into dm by dt. Now over there in the book itself, a wonderful problem is included, that there is a gardening pipe. A water is coming with the velocity v. Area of cross section of this pipe is capital A. Then how much force will be needed to hold the pipe in a horizontal position by the gardener? You might have experienced this someday or the other. Whenever you open the tap and the water is trying to come, the pipe moves in the backward direction, something like a recoil of the gun. So this particular has to be stopped. How much force the gardener must apply? Over here, the velocity of the water which is coming out is constant. A is the acceleration. So in this particular case, I'm not supposed to allow any change in the motion. That means dv by dt is expected to be 0 over here. Once this part is 0, that means acceleration is 0. So what remains is only this much. V bar is already known to me, it is given to me. I'm obviously dealing with the magnitude only. Now what is dm by dt? So how much mass comes out per second? So A is the area of cross section, means a cylinder of liquid, in particular water, will come out, and in 1 second it will cover a distance v. So if this is the cylinder which is coming out, what will be the length of this cylinder in 1 second? So in 1 second, the length will be V and the area of cross section is A. That's why the amount of liquid which is going to come out is going to be A into V. And let me assume density of the liquid to be rho. So this is what is the rate of change of mass. And that's why the force will be given by A into rho into V square. So this is what will be the expression for the value of the force. By this force, the gardener has to hold the pipe so that it won't move. A very similar problem is related with a rocket is ejecting, is moving in the upward direction with constant velocity. If it is moving with constant velocity, then how the force is acting on it? Well, the actually rocket is pulled down with the Earth's gravitational force, but it is not moving in the downward direction, means some force is applied on it. This force I want to find out. So the applied force on the rocket to balance the Earth's gravitational force so that it will be moving up with the constant velocity, how much that force is. Again, the same formula I will be using. So over there, I will be told with what velocity the rocket is going up and the fuel is coming out with what velocity. So again, with that particular, I will come to know the value of dm by dt. These problems we will discuss tomorrow. Tomorrow will be the problems related to momentum and this particular concept. So this type of things are there, and that is how the things are understood over there. Now let me come back. Okay. The law of conservation of momentum is due to the second law of motion. If there is no net force, the momentum remains same. Let me again expect that the presentation is visible to everyone.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Please, let us proceed. So summation 1 to n mi ui bar will be equal to summation 1 to n mi vi bar. Obviously, this means m1 vu1 bar plus m2 u2 bar plus m3 u3 bar dash 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 up to mn un bar. That has been written in the form of summation, and you must get familiar with this whether you are a student of mathematics or you don't have mathematics. So this is what is the law of conservation of momentum. Condition is this, that no net force should be there. The force of gravity on the body and earth, chemical energy of explosion, tension in the string, all these are internal forces. So this has to be remembered while applying the law of conservation of momentum. I'm really amazed that I'm dealing with the particular 8th standard course also. The application of this second law, though it is related with second law, many a times the experiment is explained by using the first law. Definitely I am against of this. A very popular experiment, there is a glass. On that glass, there is a cardboard. A coin is placed on that cardboard. Then the cardboard is hit and coin falls in the glass instead of moving along with the cardboard. And it has been said that it is related with the first law. The experiment is something like this. This is the glass on which cardboard is placed. A coin is placed, and then be careful, observe the thing. I'm going to apply the force. So this is what is observed. And we sincerely feel that this is because of the inertia. The coin tries to remain at its own place. The cardboard is thrown. This has nothing to do with the first law of inertia. The law of inertia is not slave of the speed. It always remains over there. If the same cardboard is removed with the slow speed, under that condition, the coin loses its inertia and moves along with the cardboard. How is this possible? I hope you are getting what I'm saying. A glass is there on which cardboard is there, a coin is placed, and I move the cardboard slowly. I try to see the coin in the glass. I won't be able to see it. It will be on the cardboard itself. If I push the cardboard with force, then coin remains over here as we have seen right now. Force is applied, then this happens. Similarly, the amazing thing is this, that this question which has been asked in JEE, AIIMS, has been discussed in 8th standard. I repeatedly is saying that try to go through the textbooks. They have done very fantastically. A support is there, a string is attached, and a weight is attached in between. Now I am having two parts. One is A and other is B. I need to know which part will break when I pull the particular thread from the downward direction. I must have command whenever I wish A should break and whenever I wish B should break. Sir, ये कैसे क्या बोल सकेंगे, वो तो जो होगा वो होगा. No, it is not like that. We have complete control on it and we can decide the things. Let me use the whiteboard and explain both the experiments one by one to have the proper understanding. First one. This has nothing to do with the law of inertia because, as I said, if this particular is moved slowly, then coin remains. And if it is moved fast, then coin is in glass. And if I say this is because of inertia, the question comes, is inertia related with the speed? And obviously not. Inertia is only related with mass. So let me explain this particular experiment in the light of second law of Newton, which says m1 u1 plus m2 u2 must be equal to m1 v1 plus m2 v2. Over here, let me say that this particular one means coin and 2 means cardboard. Now, initially, when I look at it, this is also 0 and this is also 0. So the total turns out to be 0. Now, I am not having any control on coin. I am not going to touch the coin, but I am going to apply a heavy jerk of velocity to the card. So obviously m2 v2 will be there. This particular velocity which is provided is sufficiently large, now the question comes that if this particular is sufficiently large, means exactly what is happening. So if this particular is extremely large, means truly speaking, when I look at the particular momentum, momentum is m into v. So it is dp by dt, which is nothing but d dt of m into v. So please appreciate the things over here. Now when I transfer this or multiply both sides by t, I get this. Now the time of impact is extremely small. I'm moving the card very fast. So this term turns out to be 0. The card is moving. This is 0. Now over here, the coin's final velocity, initial velocity is already 0. I'm talking about coin. Now coin's initial velocity is already 0. What must be the final velocity so that this term will remain to be 0? And automatically I get this final velocity of the coin must turn out to be 0. Otherwise, I won't have the answer properly. Please note that over here, the mass is negligible. Mass is sufficient. We cannot use a thermocol plate over here. It has to be a 50 paise coin or something like that. If this object is very light, then the experiment fails. Let me explain this once again so that it may be properly understood. I'm having this particular cardboard. On the cardboard, I'm having this coin. I've hit this particular cardboard. I want to see what happens to the coin. So the force acting on the coin is given by mv bar minus mu bar upon t. Rate of change of momentum. Due to that, what I get is F into T is equal to mv bar minus mu bar. Please note that m is sufficiently over here. T is very, very small, and that's why the left hand side becomes 0. Now over here what I have is mv bar minus m into 0 bar, because initially the coin is at rest. In this case, m is sufficient over there, so there is no other choice than to have v to be 0. And that is the reason why this coin is not able to move.
Sir,
Yes, please.
so yeah, T is very, very small, but force is not that small, no? So we cannot consider it to be 0.
Yeah, it is not precisely 0 because this particular V is not very precisely 0. If you mark the particular thing over here, the coin moves very slightly. Means if you keep the coin on the edge of the glass, it won't fall into the glass. It will hit the edge of the glass. It moves by a very small distance. But if the mass is very less, instead of coin, I am using a thermocol sheet over there, then this m is also tending to 0. And so there is no condition that velocity, final velocity must be 0. I can continue without having final velocity to be 0. That is the wonderful part over here. And now the other way around, when I move the cart slowly, at that time what happens? Now when I move the cart slowly means this t is not tending to 0. This term is called as impulse, as you might be knowing. So the f into t, this is not tending to 0. So this is a non-zero quantity. If this is non-zero quantity, over here also I should have non-zero quantity. Initial velocity of the coin is 0. So I must have this to be non-zero. How wonderful, Yara, how wonderful. And even if the mass is thermocol plate, when I move the board slowly, that thing will move along with that. So the velocity is unavoidable to have this particular non-zero term on the left side. So this is how we can explain this experiment. First law is not able to explain it because the slow motion also must have the same inertia and the coin should remain over there. Now the second observation, we are having some particular thread. There is a maybe some book or something like that which is wrapped over here, and then again it continues. This part we have called as A, this part we have called as B, and I want to find the situation that I will apply the force. It should break at A only. What should I do for this? And the explanation which comes is apply force slow increase A part will break. And apply force with jerk, then B part will break. I am a speaker of DST, trainer of DST, Department of Science and Technology. So whenever there are some particular central government's teachers training camps, I used to go over there. And this experiment, generally we prefer to demonstrate. It is very fascinating to understand Newton's second law of motion by this experiment. If suppose we apply the force slowly, that clearly indicates F into T, which is mv bar minus mu bar. Initially book is in rest, so obviously this is 0. Now I am applying the force slowly, means I am increasing the impulse. Catching the cricket ball is increasing the impulse so that we don't have the hit. Now if this particular is slowly increased, that means it is clear that the left hand side will not be 0. So the right hand side should also will not be 0. Means this particular mass which is suspended must move. Under what condition it will move? The physics knows that if the upper part is broken, then only it can move. So physics takes care that the upper part will break. It is obviously considered that the thread is uniform. It is not having this part is strong and this part is weak. That is not expected. Instead of this, if I give a sudden jerk to it, that means the T is brought very rapidly 0, means the whole left hand side is 0, means M is not supposed to move. M won't move if V is 0, and V is 0 will happen only if the B part is broken, so that the book will remain at its own place, object will remain at its own place. This is explained in 11th standard book as well as 8th standard book. Over there the reason is not said, but the experiment is explained. I'm having the particular shivers from me when I say this. This wonderful experiment has been spoken in 8th standard itself. And we just appear for the exam and we forget it. Prepare on Saturday, appear on Sunday, forget on Monday. वो स्टडी ही नहीं है जो हम forget होते हैं वो. So try to understand the things. For that, textbook go through is essential. Okay. So let me hope that everyone understood and appreciated this, and we will go back to the presentation again. Newton's third law, it gives the origin of the force. To every action, that means force, there is an equal and opposite reaction. This also means force. Now, if this is the case, then the question comes that force always appear in pair. I had a very big quarrel with my teacher when I was in 10th and I was taught this particular concept. It was my mistake that I was not able to understand, and fortunately teacher was not able to explain me, and due to that I went through some few books and then I understood. I started saying that why apple will fall. The reason is this, that we are told. Now I will be discussing all these three things, and most probably with that our time will get over. Why apple will fall, why bullock cart will move, and tug war will never be a war. So let me explain what I am talking about. We have been told that if this particular is this apple falls towards the earth. Why it falls? Because earth pulls the apple by some force. How much that force is? Well, that particular force is given by, in 9th standard, mass of earth, mass of apple upon r square, where r is the distance between the center of earth and the center of apple. So with this force, earth pulls the apple. And what is the force applied by apple on earth? Well, apple also pulls the earth in upward direction, and it is given by the value g into mass of apple multiplied by mass of earth upon r square. My God, this force is exactly equal to this force. If these two forces are equal, they are equal and opposite forces, and sir, equal and opposite forces will cancel each other, and apple should never fall on the earth. Problem is how to explain this. Another problem. Hardik, there is no need of video. Please put up the video. Now what I have is a bullock cart, and bull which are pulling the cart. Now a bull is intelligent. He refuses to pull the cart. When I ask him why you are refusing, he says, "Oh sir, if I pull the cart, according to Newton's third law, cart will pull us. And the two forces are equal and opposite, so they will cancel and we won't be able to pull the cart. So why we should pull the cart?" How I will try to explain this to them. Should I say them that no, yaar, you can apply more force on the cart so that cart will move? They will say, do you mean to say that the Newton is incorrect and bulls can have the more pull and the cart won't have that much pull? Please refer the law and see that it has been said that it is going to be equal and opposite. So how do you say this? And the same story is going to be with the tug of war. A tug is there, a person is pulling this particular, and another person with the same set of people behind him, he is also pulling. There may be some his members, and everyone is pulling. Now he is pulling it in this direction, he is pulling in this direction. Equal forces will cancel and there will be no war at all. No tension will be there. So all these particular things are going to create a big question mark, and it is not that easy to deal with. We need to understand the concept for this, then only we can understand. And I do have nearly about 5 minutes to explain this, so I will try to do that. First of all, let me hope that everyone understood the questions which I posed. And now we will discuss the answers. Action and reaction are not on same body. So they won't cancel with each other. The forces will cancel whenever they are going to act on a one single particle. When I talk about the apple and the earth, at that time, apple exerts the force on earth, whereas earth exerts the force on apple. So earth will be pulled towards the apple will be pulled towards the earth, and both will move towards each other. Yes, doubtlessly true that the earth will also be pulled by the apple. Earth will be slightly lifted, apple will be slightly or much more pushed down, and the final result will earth will be hit by the apple or apple will be hit by the earth. You may say it in any way. In a similar way, when I have the particular bullock cart and the bull will pull the cart will pull the bull. This is not going to say that both of them are going to act on some particular point and it is going to cancel. One thing is certain, that the mechanism of the bullock cart is totally different. The bull is pushing the earth and they are trying to move further. The cart is connected to bull. Doubtlessly, yes, the bull will exert the force on the cart. Cart will exert the force on the ground. And because there is a will, the cart will start moving ahead, because the friction exerted by the bull is much more than the friction exerted by the cart.
Sir,
Yes, please.
sir, can you explain bull experiment again?
Sure. What happens is this, that the bull is over here, the cart is over here. Why bull is able to pull the cart? Because it pushes the earth back with all his four legs. When he pushes the earth, at that time the surface is sufficiently rough and he is able to apply the force of the earth. By that the bull will start moving ahead. The bull is attached to the cart by a wooden piece, and because of that the force will be applied on the cart. Now the cart is having the force over here. This force has to be balanced by some another force. That force is the one which is applied on the earth, but over here there are wheels. If the wheels are not over here and the force of friction is there, then the cart will be pulled by the bull. It won't be rolling on the wheel. Because of this particular wheels, it turns out easier for the cart. Even otherwise, the cart will be pulled if suppose instead of this particular, there is a, again, I don't know whether you people have tried it someday or the other. At our childhood, we used to have, if suppose any box is there, वो खोखे का पुट्ठा रहता था, वो जाड़ा कागज पीले कलर का, उसको थोड़ा सा ऐसा रस्सी वगैरह बांध के इसके ऊपर हम लोग बैठते थे और हमारे में से कोई एक जन उसको पुल करता था. So we used to move on the ground, and this particular was not having any wheels, and it is getting pulled due to the particular sheet was sufficiently thick. After some time it used to get teared off, but till that we enjoy the particular drive. So this also can happen with the car. At that time the bull will have to exert more force and it will be exhausted rapidly. Motion has to have two things. One is force of friction over here and particular easiness over here. If the easiness is not over here, then it will be difficult for it. And once the force of friction is more than the force applied, then certainly there will be no motion. So the motion is basically permitted by the force of friction over here. What is happening is this, that the bull pulls the cart. Cart is having responsibility to create a force like this. It creates it on earth and the earth is pushed back. Because the earth is pushed back, the cart moves ahead. This is what is the explanation for this, and this is the way how you can understand this.
So,
Yes, please.
so you told that when the force of friction is more than the force applied, then it will not move.
Yeah.
Sir, force of friction will always be equal or less than force, no?
No, not necessary.
So because how much we are applying the force, that much friction will be provided.
Always this is not possible. So I can just conclude with this information. At origin of universe, the forces appeared. One was strong nuclear force. It is a short range, attractive as well as repulsive force. Its order is 10 to the power 38. Electromagnetic force is a long range, attractive as well as repulsive. It is 10 to the power 36. Weak nuclear force, which is responsible for the beta decay or the interconversion of the subatomic particles, it is 10 to the power 25, and gravitation is 10 to the power 0, that is 1. These are the basic forces, and finally you land over here. Till now, no fifth force is known, and these are the only four basic forces. Earlier, magnetism and electricity was considered to be different, but due to the great contribution by Faraday, they were combined. The forces which we experience, they are normal reaction, friction, tension, and pseudo force. In tomorrow's lecture, we will be discussing about these forces, and these forces are more important for your examination point of view. Now let my mood will decide whether first I will deal with the problems or I will deal with this particular discussion. At the time of lecture, I will be telling about it. It is advised that you should go through it. Right now, I will stop the sharing as well as I will end the meeting because you are having next meeting in front of you. Bye.